sad, funny statistic. In public spaces, so like airports, convention centers, if you give a person the choice of two bins, a recycling bin and a landfill bin, they are statistically worse than guessing. So they are actively worse than guessing when throwing items away, whether it's because they're in a rush, whether it's because they don't understand.
Just cut that part out. All right, so we have Tanner Cook here, who's the co-founder and CTO of CleanRobotics. So why don't you first just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're working on?
Sure. So like Tyler was so kind to introduce me, I'm Tanner Cook, CTO, co-founder of CleanRobotics. We're developing intelligent waste systems. Our main product is called TrashBot, that utilizes artificial intelligence and robotics in order to automatically separate compostables away from recyclables, away from landfill, far more effectively than humans, particularly in high traffic public spaces. So it replaces trash cans. We put them into stadiums, convention centers, malls, places that have historically not been able to recycle very well, and allow them to build recycling programs with our product.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm wondering, so when you tested with your first customer, like what's the story behind that?
Well, it's we've kind of had a couple of first customers. We've had very many iterations of the product. A lot of times we go in with a customer who is championing us, and we set heavy expectations, particularly when you're inventing a new product, a very new product. There's a lot that can go wrong quickly in terms of things breaking continuously, in terms of the design not being perfect, in terms of expectations not being perfect. So like our first customer, I believe it was a large Fortune 500 company, and it was at one of their offices in Pittsburgh, and it went well for several weeks until it just started going poorly. as what happened, and these things happen again, but particularly in robotics, where you're having a multi-leveled product that you're having to deal with and introduce to a new environment, it can be difficult.
Yeah, that's cool. And so, like, out of all the potential customers, how did you sort of narrow in on who you wanted to focus on first?
Well, it was actually a little bit of general interest in, and they approached us initially. So one of the main things that has been nice about our business is there's been a lot of market pull for our product. So we were talking around with people and trying to understand their general needs. And we kept on hearing it, as related to waste particularly, we kept on hearing it again and again, like our people in our office don't know how to sort properly. And no matter what I've done, I can't figure it out. And I've spent tens of thousands of dollars doing this. And when you just say, oh yeah, we've got maybe a solution, they are more than willing they were more than willing to jump on that initially, and particularly for the type of pilot that we were doing. And it was still a paid pilot, which was fortunate, and they were willing to kind of help us out in that sense.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then out of like all the different pain points in recycling, how did you narrow in on the one you wanted to do?
I think it was a little bit of the impact that we could make from a social factor. So there's a kind of a triple bottom line to our product. There's the social factor, there's the environmental factor, and of course there's the profit factor as well. The fact that we were able to achieve the social aspect of that a lot more, and have a product that could interact directly with the public and multiple different people, I think was relatively important for me and my co-founder. So that's why we kind of decided to do that, target that specific pain point within the waste and recycling stream and cycle.
Yeah, that's great. And then before you started building, like, how did you do market validation to make sure it was something people wanted?
Right. Interviews, kind of use the lean startup methodology on that. Again, validating a product to the actual customer's needs, making sure that we have functional requirements that meet their needs, and then also validating that they'll have money to pay for those solutions when you do begin to implement them. So just classically interview as many people and stakeholders as you possibly can, understand where the money comes from, why the money is going there, what is going specifically wrong, and then moving forward with creating a product around creating a solution.
I'm just going to chime in. So first of all, I think TrashBot is a fantastic idea because, you know, people inherently are lazy, and of course they just want to drop, you know, whatever they're holding and quickly move on with their life. But I'm interested in knowing, like, how can TrashBot help more than just recycling? You know, what's next for its future?
Right. Well, fortunately for us, recycling is a big problem right now.
Especially in the U.S.,
Yeah, but fundamentally what we've made is, you know, a system that can be used to sort whatever. So we built up, I mean, there's the physical hardware itself, but we've built out a system that can be applied to other different sorting challenges, whether it's for, I mean, it could be electronics waste. My mind just continuously goes to waste in general because it is a complex issue, but it's building a full system of an AI with electronics, physical hardware, and then like a mechanical and aesthetic look to it is actually very difficult. So we have yet to look into that again, because recycling and composting are such big issues right now. But I'm sure there's going to be places that we can go with it. And a little bit of a riff off of the recycling being confusing, people being lazy, I'd like to think of it more as it's kind of, I mean, it's a very difficult problem, and it's not particularly our fault. Like when you look at the bottom of a plastic bottle or something, and you see a recycling logo, intuitively that means it should be recyclable, right? But no, not always. Most of the time, not. So it's not so much our fault on all of that, but we should be placing the onus on policymakers and plastics producers to make it a lot easier to understand.
Very interesting. And just to add on question to that, because I know a little bit more about like the I don't know if this one has it, but the How to Recycle company who's been marking, you know, certain bottles and products. But does TrashBot, I mean, does it know how to decipher, like, oh, maybe this label is, I don't know, like a polyethylene or polypropylene, and then like how does it sort a product that has, you know, different components in it?
Sure. A lot of it is context based. So we go into a certain area and we understand that they use a lot of the similar materials. So a good example of this is, you know, there's various places throughout the United States that have banned styrofoam. So we can understand that anytime we see like a plastic food container, that it isn't styrofoam. We can make a bunch of inferences that way, that we can program our robot to make those assumptions as well. It's not perfect, but it's pretty darn accurate. About 95-96% accurate.
Way more accurate than just a person.
Yeah. We've found through a lot of our studies, and particularly, it's kind of a sad, funny statistic, in public spaces, so like airports, convention centers, if you give a person the choice of 2 bins, a recycling bin and a landfill bin, they are statistically worse than guessing. So they are actively worse than guessing when throwing items away, whether it's because they're in a rush, whether it's because they don't understand the local recycling rules, a million different reasons. The signs aren't clear. So it's kind of, it's bad, but it's the basis for a business for us.
Yeah, that's wild. You say that, and I just imagine like switching the recycling and the trash and getting better accuracy.
Oh yeah. And everyone's kind of seen it before, where where a custodian will just kind of look at a recycling bin and just dump it in with the rest of the trash, and that's exceptionally common. Where it's so low quality and it's so mixed up with other landfill items and everything that it's all just garbage in the end of the day in a lot of these places. And they want to do better, and I want them to do better. So it's, again, that's why we have TrashBot.
That's great. Well, before we let you go, we're wondering what other advice do you have for people who want to found a similar company to yours?
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly for those with technical backgrounds, it's always fun creating a shiny new tool in whatever context, but finding a direct problem and then creating a solution is a lot more important than just creating a solution and trying to find a problem. I think it'll make a little bit more sense to those who have started to create a solution before finding a problem. But again, finding a problem and then creating a solution to it, I think is particularly important to those who are technically minded.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've actually made that mistake before too, where it's like an engineering class, they give you the pieces and they tell you what can you build, and it's like you sort of are trained to like try to build something rather than stepping back and saying what should be built.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Exactly. That isn't to say that there aren't fun things that you can build, and the purpose of them is being fun, but those are a lot more rare.
Mhm.